Ilana Gelman here, naturopathic doctor, and welcome back Susan Marks, founder and creator of Greater Clarity Health Notes. Alright, today we are going to go through Anatomy of an Epidemic. This is going to be a fascinating book all about mental illness and the use of drugs and psychotropics and anxiolytics and SSRIs, and we're going to go through a lot of this information. This health note is one of the most packed. So statistics that I've never even heard of, and research, there's so much. So we'll try to give you as much as we can. I hope it's not too overwhelming because it is a lot of information. So we've tried to nitpick the things that we really want you to know, and then please pick up your health notes so you can learn a lot more. So please tell us about the author, and who is this? Robert.
So Robert Whitaker is the author, and he's an investigative reporter actually. And you know, we all know someone who's been troubled by depression, or maybe we've even been depressed at times ourselves. And there's a growing number of awareness of disorders affecting American children, like ADHD and hyperactivity disorder and bipolar illnesses. And there's quite an ongoing debate about whether the medications used to treat those problems are really the answer. And some believe that the meds actually cause physical harm and increase the chance of mental illness. And for future generations, it can even harm them. So when you're depressed and you're feeling awful, you just want to make it go away. You just want like a magic pill that will ease your symptoms, and that's why so many people start taking these drugs. They have no idea the long-term side effects.
Tell me more about this. This is fascinating.
So selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs, such as Prozac, flood your information system with increased levels of serotonin. And antipsychotic drugs do the same thing with dopamine pathways. And serotonin and dopamine are both, you know, those feel-good chemicals in your brain. And your brain attempts to adjust to those for the first few days or weeks, and it succeeds at first. But eventually, its balancing systems fail, and the drug takes control, which alters the already fragile chemical balance in your brain. So what happens is that the drug creates a new abnormal situation rather than correcting one. And when patients try to quit using these drugs, they often suffer worse symptoms than before, such as sweats and tremors and hallucinations and depersonalization, and so that's the trap. Patients taking Xanax or other types of benzodiazepines for minor anxiety can get hooked on them, and it may not continue working or helping you create a calm state, and the brain becomes habituated to the medication and changes its functioning based upon it. And then if the drug is discontinued, the patient faces the consequences of an oversensitized messaging system, and neurons fire when they shouldn't, and unwanted symptoms occur. And in other words, the patient who was depressed because of a difficult life situation might well end up with a biological cause for anxiety that they didn't have before they started taking that magic pill.
You know, and that's a great point, and I see a lot of patients who sometimes are in need of an antidepressant or an anti-anxiolytic because of a life event. There's something that occurs, something tragic happens, they fall off balance, and they just need something to help restore balance. Now, luckily, I love that I have so many natural medicines that that's really where I turn to, but it's important to know the research in these long-term effects, because sometimes we need to choose, and not always is it a bad thing if you need to choose the conventional way. It's always great in my mind to look at more natural methods first. But what does the research say? What does the research have in these books to suggest that there could be a long-term effect?
Oh, that's a really good question. So studies show that benzodiazepines are known to work quickly, and that they've proved in a study by Upjohn, the manufacturer of Xanax, that they did a study where patients took either Xanax or a placebo for 8 weeks. And then weeks 9 through 12, the patients were slowly withdrawn from the Xanax, and then the last 2 weeks, no medication was given. And the results were really interesting. For the first 4 weeks, more of the Xanax patients than the placebo patients were moderately improved. But the interesting information comes in the next 4 weeks. The placebo patients continued to improve, but the Xanax patients did not. And at the end of the 8 weeks, there was no difference between the two groups. And then when they tried to get everybody off of the Xanax, they experienced all sorts of problems like sedation, fatigue, slurred speech, amnesia, poor coordination, and some had really serious side effects like aggressive and manic behavior. And so by the end of the 14-week study, the patients given the Xanax were worse off than the placebo group, and 44% of them were unable to get off the drug. And so they were on their way to a lifetime of addiction. But the first few weeks, the relief, so those first few weeks of relief came at a really high cost. And those results are not published all the way through. The manufacturer of this product publishes the first 4-week results. They don't tell you the whole story here unless you read the really fine print. And that's the danger of these drugs. You start out being depressed and you want some relief, but you end up now with a biochemical change in your brain, and you've got a lifetime of addiction to these drugs.
Yeah, that's really hard. You know, and people are put in situations where they're struggling, you know, and if you're struggling, please go see a doctor, see someone in your area, but I highly recommend going to see a naturopathic doctor. I know for me, one of my magic tools that I use, I always call it magic because it's amazing, is homeopathy. Homeopathy is pretty incredible as far as restoring balance with the body in general, whether that's a mental, spiritual imbalance, whether that's a physical imbalance, but specifically with mental illness, we get such great success with this. So I'm glad that we got to talk about it. I got to share how my love for homeopathy is, but thank you.
Yeah, I think that natural alternatives are great because, you know, doctors and parents are acting with what they believe to be integrity when they're giving these drugs, but unfortunately they might be misinformed with the entire study. And so trying natural alternatives like homeopathy is a far safer thing to do than turning to a drug that's going to affect your brain chemistry.
Well, because once you're on it, you're pretty well on it for life. So that's kind of what happens. But okay, thank you. That was really great. I mean, this book has so much information. Your health note is excellent. I mean, this is a really packed book. It's almost hard to read because there's so much information, so much research, so many statistics. So Susan has so well, you know, organized it for us and outlined it and bullet pointed it, which is why I love your health notes. So I listen to this one often. I actually repeat this one because it's a really good detailed one, or I just have it on my iPad and I read the 10-page summary. So thank you so much for this. Yep. So that's great. Did you want to share about where we can get them?
Yes, if you go to greaterclarity.com, you can order the Library of Health Notes. And if you want to enter the coupon code Nourish, you'll get a 15% discount for everybody that watches Dr. Gilman's videos.
Thank you. Great. Okay, so hopefully you shared this information with some of your loved ones. We all know someone that suffers with these type of mental illnesses, whether they're for a short term or whether they're for long term. So please do share for children and adults. This goes for everyone. Okay, we'll see you back next time. Thank you.